Hello, I am your Rusame reader, Crowsong, and today I will be reading to you from Royal Guard by Muriel Wright. Now, before we get into this chapter, there is a warning for blood and violence. If you can't handle that, please skip out on this chapter. Now, on to chapter 13. Back to you. His head throbbed with immeasurable pain. Voices surrounded him in a blur. The boy let out dry coughs that lodged in his throat as he slowly lifted his eyelids. He saw double of everything. Everything was blurry. The prince tried to move his hands, but they wouldn't budge. He could only feel the cold skin press against his hands. Wait, cold skin? His gloves! They were removed. He groaned internally in annoyance. What kind of situation am I in now? His eyebrows twitched. His cloak was gone too. The prince analyzed his surroundings and his conditions. It seemed he was in a small wooden storage area. His hands were tied together against a pole. Nothing on his body seemed to be hurt either. It seems like he was drugged and brought here. I'm guessing ransom? America raised an eyebrow subconsciously. The cabin door burst open. 3 men walked in. America could not clearly make out their faces due to his eyesight still being quite blurry. He's awake, one said to the other. What do you want from me? America said with an annoyed tone. Well, dear Princey, you're worth quite a good amount of gold coins. Another gave a slanted grin. The American had quite a bad feeling about this. Oh, please, why would my old geezer pay any money for a piece of shit like me? I'm not even a good prince, America said with a grin, clearly in a joking manner. Well, good prince or not, you're still gonna be the next king. All 3 of them circled the tied-up boy. Even if the king doesn't pay off, your face is pretty enough for other things to work. One crouched down and lifted America's chin. The boy's pupils immediately shrank. Get your vile creature hands off of me! He shoved the man away with a kick. His feet were, luckily, not tied. The other men helped up the one who had fallen over. America glared at the 3 of them with a venomous expression. Behave yourself, motherfucker! I am absolutely not going to become some sex slave, America spat without thinking. Do you have a choice? One of them stomped on America's foot. The prince was still glaring at them, suppressing a wince of pain. That was definitely going to leave a bruise. Such attitude. The man who America had kicked previously stood up again. Teach him a lesson, but avoid the face. He left the cabin, leaving the other 2 men with the tied-up boy. As they walked closer, probably ready to beat the shit out of him, America quickly tried to think of a plan. He quickly felt around behind him with his tied-up hands when he suddenly felt a nail poke his finger. Great. Now just tough it up and wait for it to be over. He braced for impact. Though getting a punch to the gut in the next second was pretty goddamn painful. America coughed in agony. Another hand started to choke him. The prince craned his neck upward. The nails dug through tender skin on his neck. The area started to burn and ache with immense pain. The prince grit his teeth, not willing to make a single sound. Don't start acting tough with us now. They stepped on his arm, so it fractured. The ear-piercing sound was unforgettable. The prince shouted in pain for a split second before realizing and immediately shutting his mouth again. This continued for a while. By the end, America was trembling and refusing to give up nor let out a single wince in pain. He didn't even feel like crying at all. When the two men left, he sighed in relief. The prince reached up for the nail again and started to attempt to cut the rope. A tall cloaked figure walked through the town. All the villagers paid no mind to him. The Russian couldn't get anywhere with just walking around town. He swallowed the large lump in his throat and walked up to an elderly couple. "Excuse me, have you seen a hooded man much like myself, but shorter?" Somehow Russia managed to get the words out of his throat. Maybe it's because he was in a desperate situation, but usually he can't communicate with strangers at a first glance. The elderly couple shook their head. Russia walked around town asking everyone the same thing. Everyone replied with a no. The guard started to panic internally a little, though his face showed no signs of any emotions. He walked up to a stall with a young lady inside and 2 children. "Have you seen a hooded man like myself, but much shorter?" "Yes, I did. He was a quite nice young man. He even helped me unload my vegetables and fruits. I gave him an apple as thanks," she explained while holding her 2 children so they didn't run off. The guard's eyes widened slightly. He slammed his hands on the stall counter, but he was careful enough not to do it so loudly that he would break the whole stall. "Do you know where he is now?" "I'm sorry, I don't. I only saw him walk that way." She pointed in a direction. "Thank you." Russia bowed his head and sprinted towards where she had pointed. He walked around for a while before stopping in front of an alleyway with a bitten apple in front of it. His expression showed no difference in emotion, but it grew darker, in a quite scary way. Russia pushed through the alley down the path. "Got it!" America exclaimed internally as the ropes on his hand became loose. The prince cracked his knuckles on instinct, but then immediately regretted it. "Ow, ow, 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 ow," he said under his breath. He forgot they fractured his left arm. "Well, at least my face is fine." He shrugged and tried to get up, ignoring the bruise on his foot. He clutched his bloody, fractured left arm. Blood trailed down his mouth. His neck had deep hand marks. His hair and clothes were messy and bloody, especially the clothes, though. The prince used all of his remaining strength in his arms to open the door. He trudged forward, limping. There he could see where he previously was before the man drugged him, so he hurriedly dragged his arm and foot there. "Where do you think you're going?" A man's voice came right next to him. His fight-or-flight instincts kicked in. Before he could do anything, though, the man grabbed his fractured arm and lifted him up by his left arm, overflowing his pain nerves. Tears welled up in the corner of his eyes. "Hurts, doesn't it, boy?" "Fuck you!" America muttered in between painful whimpers. He was ready to kick him again, unsure if it was going to work. Of course, the bruise on his leg would get worse, but it didn't really matter. But then suddenly, a sword flew right in front of him. The man's arm was cut clean off, but then he realized the sword wasn't flying. The handler was just so graceful and fast that it seemed like it was. Just as America fell, an arm caught him. "Russia?" He raised an eyebrow, somehow emanating a cocky demeanor. Are you okay, America? He asked worriedly, one hand still clutching his bloody sword. The sword reflected the sunlight and reflected a beautiful scarlet shade. I gotta handle it myself, you know? I'm well aware, though I don't want the injuries on your legs to get any worse. America's eyes widened a little. He smiled as usual again. Ha, you read my mind, he smirked. And that is the end of this chapter. I hope you've enjoyed. Now, I'd once again like to invite you to join our Discord server. We have a lot of fun. And that's all I have for you. I hope you have a good day, night, whatever time it is for you. Just enjoy your time. And I'll see you tomorrow.